Hello, boys and girls. How are you all? Welcome back to Sunya IAS. And this is a discussion from the PSIR Foundation Course. And this discussion is on the third thinker in Western political thought, Machiavelli. And I'm going to make a case whether Machiavelli was the first modern thinker and what were his methodological contributions to political studies, political science, and the study of politics, and how he was different from medieval Christian dark ages of Europe, and how he was different from ancient idealism of European thought, and the legacy he leaves behind for the future generations of thinkers such as Hobbes, Rousseau, Gramsci, etc. Right, let's start the discussion. Now, to make an argument, a case for Machiavelli, whether he is the first modern thinker or is it Thomas Hobbes who's the first modern thinker. So, in the introduction to this topic, we will admit that yes, there are several quarters in the circles of political science, many scholars who say that Machiavelli is indeed the first modern thinker, right? So we'll give him that. And then to balance the answer out, to balance this topic, to balance this discussion, at the end of the discussion of this topic, in the conclusion, we will write about the kamya, the shortcomings as to why Machiavelli should not be characterized as the first modern thinker. Rather, the credit goes to Thomas Hobbes. Right. So then overall the topic will have a sense of balance. Right. Now, first we will assess the methods of Machiavelli, the core methods and the methods that come above it. Right, the core primary methods and the secondary methods that are offshoots of the core method. For example, functionalism, realism, they are offshoots of the method of history and the method of empiricism. I'll prove it to you. Right. Next, after discussing his methods, we will be able to understand that yes, there is a departure, a rupture, that Machiavelli's entry into political studies breaks political thought and the history of political thought into two: pre-Machiavellian, starting with Plato, Aristotle, then the Christian thinking, then post-Machiavellian, the legacy continued by Thomas Hobbes. Right? And therefore, can we make a case? Can we argue fairly, with force, with conviction and confidence, that he was the first modern thinker? Obviously, we'll say at the end he was not. We will prove that he is actually a Renaissance thinker. That is not a thinker of modern era, nor he is a thinker of the medieval era or the late Middle Ages era, but rather he belongs to his own specific unique period, the period of Renaissance. He is very local to Italy and is very narrow to Renaissance. Right? How? We'll see. So in the introduction, initially we will hail Machiavelli, that how he has been described as the first modern thinker by several scholars. Why? Because he challenged the prevailing thought and ethos and the methods he used. If you remember, for example, Machiavelli lived in the late Middle Ages, during which time scholars like Saint Aquinas. See the word saint? Obviously, they were Christian thinkers, theologians. Saint Aquinas, Saint Augustine. They understood political thought as they based their politics, they based their political thinking on the Bible. Right? So what method did Machiavelli bring here? Very important, boys and girls. How did he, like it is written here, challenge the prevailing, the existing, his contemporaries, how they thought? How did he challenge them? Through his methods of empiricism and historical approach. These were his core methods. Over and above these core methods, there are byproducts of these methods. Let me illustrate. What is empiricism? Understanding whether natural phenomena or biological concepts or whatever is happening around us. Take lightning, for example. Take the planetary motion, for example, the motion of the sun and the moon, for example. So social systems, for example, political systems, for example, understanding all of these through observation, right? Observation, sensory observation, seeing them, hearing them, smelling them, right? Touching them. So you want to understand the moon? Take a telescope and see how it operates, right? You want to understand political systems? Study them. Go send your interns, study these political systems, study their history, study their laws and constitutions. This is empiricism. Another method is historical. Remember, Machiavelli belonged to which era, boys and girls? He belonged to the Renaissance era. Renaissance era, right? Renaissance means what? It means rebirth or revival of what? Of ancient Greek or Roman works. Whether it's ancient Greek view on politics, ancient Greek art, ancient Greek philosophy, or ancient Roman art, philosophy, etc. Right? So these were revived again. Right? So Machiavelli belongs to which era? 1500s. And all of these were, let's say, 400 BC to 400 AD. Right? So this era was revived in the Renaissance period of, so Renaissance period is between 1300 AD to 1500 AD, and this is the era of Machiavelli. Right? So he takes empirical approach from ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle. Ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, right? And the historical approach from the Roman historian, ancient Roman historian Livius. Livius, in English it's Levi. Livius. Okay, this is very important. Why? Because Machiavelli wrote two books. First, a small book called The Prince. Second, a bigger book called Discourses. And the book Discourses is nothing but a commentary, a description, a debate with a book. Okay? Machiavelli and two of his friends, when he was retired away from his hometown, he discusses Livius's book, Levi's History of Rome. Levi had written a book on the Roman history, on the history of the Roman Republic. So Machiavelli's book Discourses, is a commentary on the book by Livius. Okay? Understand commentary as, okay, Livius has written, this is how Roman Republic functioned in this and this manner, in this context, and this institution. So Machiavelli would say, oh, this discussion given by Levi, it's a nice discussion. I hope that this is something we will also incorporate or implement in today's era. And whether this idea will work today or not, or was it something that only belonged to Rome, right? So these kind of, basically, an internal debate within a book, right? So this is what he took from these two. He took from ancient Greece and ancient Rome, these two core methods, right? So with these core methods, he made a lasting impact, an impact that we study even today, that shaped modern way of thinking in a way, right? And basically he made political studies and political science a completely autonomous discipline. Autonomous matlab free and different. Why? Because ancient thinking, see, ancient era of ancient Greece and Rome, politics was seen more of a branch of as more of a branch of philosophy, right? Then medieval era, the Christian scholars like Saint Aquinas and Saint Augustine, they were seeing politics as what? A sub branch of religious studies, right? Even politics was to serve religious purpose, right? In ancient Christian, in ancient Europe, in medieval Europe, the Pope, the Pope who was the head of the Christendom, the Christian world, would control all the kings in Europe and would tell the king, okay, ban sex, ban businesses, ban giving loans on interest, right? Ban science, ban telescopes. They are against religion because according to the teachings of the church, the earth was flat and the earth was the center of the universe and the sun and the moon revolved around the earth. So this was the thinking brainwashed by the church on the people of Europe, right? So from these guys, Machiavelli made a complete departure. Why to listen to the church to understand whether the sun is the center or the earth was the center? You yourself see, pick up a telescope and see, you will understand. This is what? Empiricism. Why to understand politics from the writer, from theological writers, Christian writers? If you want to understand politics, read the laws, the constitutions and the history. Right? Machiavelli, because he belonged to the Renaissance period, because in this period, Europeans realized, till now we've been believing in Andhavishwas and superstition. This is the dark ages. But our own forefathers, our own ancestors, almost 2000 years ago, were so much ahead, were so much logical and scientific and rational and wise. Let's go back to our roots. In India, during the socio-religious reform movements, many said that to overcome our own Andhavishwas, we must go back to the Vedas. We must go back to our own past, revive our own past, the wisdom of the ancient world. Right, so this was the prevailing thinking during the Renaissance period. This was a dominant thinking, and Machiavelli was a product of this thinking. Right, he also wanted to learn from the glory of the past, from the Roman and the Athenian ancient glories of the past. Right, now he says, then another thing he did was, because he was empirical, he was dependent on observation to make his to write his books and to express his views. So obviously if you observe, you will understand the reality, right? And during his times, because Machiavelli was a diplomat and he was a civil servant like yourself, what you're aspiring to be, he had served in the courts of different kings. He was around powerful men. He had served as a diplomat in the court of King Louis of France, Emperor Maximilian of the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation. He was also serving in the court of the Vatican Church, the Pope. So he was among powerful men, and he understood that morality, ethics among these powerful men will not work. You need to be like a Chanakya, because there is cutthroat competition. People use their power, name, wealth and status to rise up the social ladder, to become the prime minister, to become the king, to become the prince, to become the duke, to become a cardinal, an archbishop, the pope. There's so much politics going on. So in politics, ordinary morality of honesty, kindness do not work. Here you have to be ruthless, you have to be cunning, you have to be clever like a fox, and ruthless like a lion. Only then you will go ahead. Only then आप सत्ते पे आओगे और गद्दी पर बैठोगे, or you will safeguard your throne. Otherwise, you will be kicked out, booted out by your rivals and enemies. Therefore, he said, politics has its own rules, and politics cannot be studied like you study philosophy or like you study religion. Politics has to be studied with its own methods. Therefore, it has its own rules. And he makes political science a completely autonomous discipline. Right. Now, uh, and he discipline, and he talked about basically practical politics. Practical politics, not politics like Plato talked about. Oh, the best city or the best country or the best political system is the one which is governed and ruled by the most educated and the wisest philosopher king. These impracticable, unimplementable, ultra idealistic ideas were rejected by Machiavelli. So, therefore, he rejected both religious thinking of politics and the idealist thinking of politics, and he only focused on the practical approach to politics. One thing one must keep in mind here is Machiavelli was not very lucky, in the sense that 100 years later, after Machiavelli's times, our fourth thinker in the syllabus, Thomas Hobbes, English philosopher of the mid 17th century, he was very fortunate to have been friends with or to have lived in the times of great scientists like Galileo. Italian astronomer Galileo had taught Hobbes that it was the sun which was the center of what we see in the sky, and that they even had this approach called scientific materialism trending during the times of Hobbes, 100 years after Machiavelli, which believed that the universe is made up of matter and that God did not in fact create the universe. That universe had always existed and the whole universe is made up of matter, and matter was nothing but particles in motion, as how we understand the standard model of physics today, as matter consisting of atoms with a nucleus inside it, with protons and neutrons and the electrons whizzing or buzzing around it in motion. Right. So Machiavelli did not have this benefit and privilege. So he had to make do with what he had. So what he had was ancient wisdom of the Greeks and the Romans, and he used that wisdom to challenge the thinking of his times. So he does deserve some credit for changing the thinking of his times. He may not be the perfect modern thinker, but is still different from the existing medieval thinking. Right. Now, we'll see his method and his views to specific institutions. First, since this is political science, we need to understand how he viewed the state. Now, some context let's see here. In the ancient world, Plato and Aristotle of ancient Greece, they viewed the state as a moral institution. That gives a happy, good, and moral and virtuous life of the citizens. For the citizens, it gives a moral, happy, and virtuous life. This was the understanding of the ancient idealist philosophers like Plato and Aristotle and Socrates. He also challenged the medieval way of seeing. Medieval way, what was it? That state, it serves the dictates of religion, the requirements of religion. If the Pope or the Church says, if the Pope instructs the kings of England, the kings of France and Germany and Spain and Italy, that ban science, ban scientific thinking, spread the gospel, the word of God, that was the duty of the king. The king's job was not to think about, or his job was not to be concerned about your roti kapda makan. It was mostly concerned about the dictates of religion. Right. So Machiavelli rejected both these views. Right. So religion was concerned about what? Securing a place for you in heaven, making sure you do not go to hell and you get a ticket to heaven. Right. So he rejected both these views, because religion is concerned about heaven or hell, right? So it is otherworldly. It is not concerned about what you do in this life, whether you get roti kapda makan. It is otherworldly in its thinking, that it is mostly concerned about you not going to hell and actually going to heaven. So it is a spiritual institution, right? State is a secular institution that is concerned about your secular needs. Secular means this worldly, earthly, what you do on the earth. You want a house, you want food, you need clothing. These are the secular requirements. What is the opposite? Spiritual requirements. King, Prime Minister, Chancellor, First Minister, President, Emperor, they are secular offices, secular individuals for your secular concerns. Right? So that was his view. State was secular. Then state, it originates in the needs of individuals, such as the basic need of security. Individuals cannot survive alone. Therefore, individuals came together under the strongest of them and built political systems in order to safeguard their own interests, their own survival. Right? But if you see the debates in ancient Greece, the debates between sophists. Sophists were the enemies of Plato and Socrates. Right? Sophists were teaching aspiring young politicians of ancient Greece, just like I and my colleagues teach you aspiring officers. Right? So sophists, what did they say? They had the same view. They said state and society, they are artificial institutions that were created by individuals to fulfill their own basic needs, such as their desire for security and safety. Right? So in a way, Machiavelli is rejecting the view of the Christians and of the Greek idealists, and in a way continuing the legacy of the sophists. Right? Sophists were challenged by whom? Plato and Socrates. Right? So here we have, on the one hand, idealistic thinkers who believe that the state and society are natural and good institutions that enable human beings to live together morally, because we cannot live together without following the rules, without following morality. Right? But on the opposite side, we had the sophists who would say that society and state, they are artificial institutions and individuals seek power to satisfy their own material desires, desires for glory, desires for wealth and gold. Right? Similarly, Machiavelli has rejected the divine role of the state and the idealistic role of the state as a moral institution, and he is in a way echoing what the sophists said, that politics is an enterprise. Okay, here success is coming to power and holding on to that power. So Machiavelli is saying that state, it is an arena, it is a ranabhumi, a battlefield, right? Arena of struggle for power and domination. Struggle for power and domination. Okay. Then Machiavelli also says that without state, people would become unruly, violent against each other. So state is needed to keep the anti-social elements in all of us under control. Imagine a world without the state. We would be fighting each other, stealing from each other, to take resources from each other. We'd be willing to violently kill each other, right? So state is also needed. It keeps. Human beings are antisocial animals, according to Machiavelli, according to sophists. But Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle said that human beings are essentially good people, and human beings are essentially social animals who live together, and to live together, they make common rules in the state. Therefore, state is a natural institution because it comes from the needs of man of following the rules. Right? Here, rules we don't follow from the heart. We follow rules out of fear of punishment. Right? So, state keeps the antisocial elements in individuals under control. Let me clarify this again. Here, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they say what? We are social beings. We naturally come together. To live together, we need common rules, and we make those rules in the state. Therefore, state and following the rules is truly human nature. It is very natural for us to do so. Right? Sophists and Machiavelli, on the other side, are saying, no, we human beings are jealous people. We are desirous people. We don't like each other. We want to take each other's resources. But this will lead to conflict. So what we do, we come under the strongest people. We elect our strong leaders. We choose the strong amongst us to lead us, to protect us. That becomes the state. And in the state, it is a game of power struggle. Right? The strongest and the wealthiest and the most powerful or the most tactical with Dimag, with Chanakya's Dimag, can come to power. And holding on to that power, that is success in politics. Right? So coming to power and maintaining that power, that is success in politics. So whether you come to power in legal or illegal way, in legitimate or illegitimate way, in moral or immoral way, it doesn't really matter. Because rules in politics, in the world of politics, is different from rules in the ordinary sphere, in the domestic sphere, in the rules for the ordinary man. Ordinary man, you're expected to, let's say, आम आदमी, जो बंदा अपना वादा को निभाता है, right? A person who honors his promise, who honors his word, right? Who is kind to fellow beings, who is honest, who is charitable, who is generous. These rules don't apply in politics. These ethics do not apply in politics. Why? In politics, there is cutthroat competition for power, for struggle, for competition for power, for wealth, and for domination and control. Right? Therefore, rules are different there. So that is the view of the state that Machiavelli has. Now, how his Renaissance history helped him. Right? So, remember what I said? His book Discourses, it is basically a commentary, a deep study of ancient Roman historian, writer Levi. His book, History of Rome, of the Roman Republic, or History of Rome, right? So many views that Machiavelli recommended, many ideas he recommended, many views that he expressed in his writings were actually deeply influenced by historical writings, from historical examples. He was inspired by the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire. He was inspired by ancient Roman generals, leaders, military generals, great warriors like Julius Caesar, and the enemy of Romans, such as Carthaginian Empire, modern day jahan Tunisia hai. Roman Empire was in the Mediterranean region, right? North Africa was also part of the Mediterranean region, and there's a place today there called Tunisia. And 2000 years ago, this area, this region was called as Carthage, Carthage, right? Carthaginian Empire, which was a rival of the Roman Republic in, let's say, the 2nd century BC, right? And Carthage the greatest military hero of Carthage was Hannibal, Hannibal, Hannibal. So Machiavelli wanted to learn from Caesar, Julius Caesar, and Hannibal. Alexander the Great, ancient Greek, the builder of the first empire in the Greek world, Alexander, right? So these great men, and even the Persians, the rival of Rome, उसमें Cyrus the Great था. So Cyrus, Hannibal learned not only from Rome but also from the enemies of Rome. Like I said, Hannibal, Caesar, Cyrus, and Alexander. Right. So he was influenced by historical kingdoms, historical republics, historical empires. He was also influenced by historical leaders. So he wanted his people, Italians, to learn from their own past and past personalities. Right. So basically, lessons from history. History includes 2: great leaders and then great polities, matlab political systems. Let's see some examples here. For example, Hannibal of the Carthaginian Empire. You don't have to write Carthaginian Empire वगैरह. Hannibal, then Caesar, then Cyrus the Great, then Alexander the Great. Right, great polities such as the Roman Republic. He was not a big fan of the Roman Empire, so let's just write one example, Roman Republic. Right, and he was highly influenced and impressed by the sheer size and magnitude of the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire. It controlled the entire Mediterranean Sea. Right? If this was the Mediterranean Sea and if this was Italy, it controlled Greece, parts of Turkey, parts of North Africa, the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, Egypt, then France and parts of Germany. It stretched all the way across the English Channel to the British Isles where England is there. This was the Mediterranean Empire of Rome. Right, he was mighty impressed by this. But his own Italy, during his own times, was a deeply fragmented polity. Fragmented geography with multiple polities, beg your pardon. Republic of Venice, Republic of Florence, Kingdom of Naples, Kingdom of Sicily. And the Papal States, basically the territories around Rome, controlled by the Roman Catholic Church ka Pope, the father of Christendom. Literally, even the Pope had direct control over territories from which he could make money. Right. So the Italy of Machiavelli's era was divided Italy, fragmented Italy, tuta uta Italy. But he was impressed by the past Italy, 1800 years before his time, 1500 years before his time, Roman Republic and the Roman Empire, which was the entirety of the Mediterranean region. So therefore, he wanted to unify Italy. Again, what is the approach he's using here? Historical approach, studying history, learning from history. Now, from history, what else did he learn? Not just about Rome. He also read philosophers such as Aristotle. He learnt empiricism. Empiricism from Aristotle. What is empiricism? Understanding everything directly through observations. Right. Then he learnt logic and reason from Aristotle. And Aristotle was a biologist, was a scientist. He would observe everything around him. He didn't just believe any Bible or any Talmud or a Torah or the Quran. No. If you had curiosity, you investigate, explore, research yourself. So Machiavelli was not guided by anybody's philosophy, nor was he guided by the Bible or the teachings of the church. He was guided by actual history and his own personal experience, empiricism and observation. So he challenged the dark ages of Europe, the age of Andhvishwas. Challenged the dark ages. Right. And Machiavelli lived in the 16th century, early 16th century, 1510, 1515, 1505, 1500, right? What had happened just a few years before this? In 1492, Christopher Columbus, a Genoese navigator, maritime explorer who was funded by the Spanish monarchy, King and Queen of Spain, Christopher Columbus, had discovered the Americas in 1492, North America and South America and Central America, right? Then 6 years later, in 1498, Vasco da Gama, a Portuguese explorer, maritime explorer and ship captain and navigator, he discovered the direct sea route to India when he landed in Kozhikode, Calicut. So this, boys and girls, was the era of the age of discovery. And 100 years later, Australia was discovered and the British started settling in Australia, colonized Australia as a prisoners' penal colony. They sent all the unwanted people from England to Australia. Right. And they sent all the great cricketers to Australia, I guess. Right. So Machiavelli, through his observation of all these things, age of discovery, trade with other worlds, he realized, यार ethics वगैरह यार कुछ काम का नहीं है. Morality is different. Morality in Italy was different from morality in China or in India or in the Americas. Right? The rules that we follow, what we believe as truth, is only within these boundaries, within this mountain, within this samandar, within this forest. Outside these rules are different. Truth is different. This is called moral relativism. Right? So through his observations, he understood relative nature of morality. That morals for you may be different from morals for me. Okay? You may eat beef, I am against it. You may eat meat, I am against it. You may drink alcohol, I am against it. So morals are different between different culture. Then he also realized the influence of the church was also going down. Everybody was thinking, age of discovery was what? The age of entrepreneurship, age of adventures. Risk hai, tabhi to isk hai. So people from Britain, England, the Netherlands, the Danes, the French, the Italians, they would take enormous amount of risks to go on ships to faraway lands and colonies and trade and make money. and they would make a lot of money. But half the people who set sail, who went off to faraway lands, did not come back. Either they married there, or they died in the high seas. They were thrown out of their ships. They died of seasickness, or they caught a disease in tropical lands when they came to India, let's say, and let's say they were killed in India. Half the people did not come back. So to make money, people had to take a lot of risk. So this was the era of economic entrepreneurship. The word entrepreneurship is a byproduct of is derived from the word adventure. East India Company जो charter है, the first Queen Elizabeth I, she signed that charter in the year 1600 to permit the East India Company to trade with India. So what was the name of the charter? Merchants and adventurers of the East India Company seek Her Majesty's assent and permission to trade with East. Right? This was the era of entrepreneurship. The same way, because Italy was divided, it had multiple political systems. The Pope was interfering in the affairs of every political system. Kings would come, kings would go. So there was more opportunity for people to come to power, for me to come to power, for you to come to power. If you played your cards well, if you used your calculations well, Chanakya Niti well, if you used your wealth well, your force, your power well, you could come to power. Anybody could be king. So it was not only the era of economic entrepreneurship, it was also the era of political entrepreneurship that he observed through empirical observation. So here you will write age of discovery. It led to what? Economic entrepreneurship. And fragmented Italy. Because Italy was unstable, it had many polities and political systems. Genoa, Venice, Milan, Sicily, right? Venice, Florence, Siena, Naples. So there were multiple states within Italy, and because it was unstable, the French were interfering in the affairs of Italy. The Spanish were interfere in the politics of Italy. The Pope would interfere in the politics of Italy, right? If let's say the French did not like me as king of Florence, or the ruler of Florence, or the magistrate of Florence, I would be removed, right, and replaced with someone. Let's say that later the French lost a battle against Spain, then Spain will start interfering in the politics of Florence, of Italy, right? So there was instability. So fragmented Italy led to political entrepreneurship. Anybody could play good politics, use wealth, power, influence, propaganda, and come to power. For example, 1453 में Ottoman Sultan conquered Constantinople, Eastern Roman Empire, okay, Byzantine Empire, right? Europeans, Christian Empire was conquered by the Ottoman Sultan, Sultan Mehmed II in 1453. In the subsequent decades, you know what the Spaniards did, the Spanish people did, the Spanish king did? The Spanish people would brainwash the Italians, because if you see, if this was the Mediterranean Sea and here it is Italy, this was Greece and this is Turkey. So this was conquered by the sultans, the Muslims, right? Here there is Spain, right? Spanish would tell the Italians, who were already weak and scared, that if you do not allow Spain to control you and protect you, Muslims will conquer you. Next stop is Italy. Greece to gaya, agla Italy ka number hai, right? So the Spanish would use propaganda, and manlo, I'm smart, I bribe the Spanish politicians. I tell the Spanish, I'll be your messenger. I will also bring that fear among Italians. I will tell them Spanish हमारा godfather है, protector है, बाप है, चलो उनकी पैर पकड़ते, वो हमें सुरक्षित रखेंगे मुसलमानों से. So the Spanish will help me come to power. Right. My enemy, let's say, my rival in politics in Italy, would go and talk to France. भाई फ्रांस तुम स्पेन के साथ लड़ो, और फ्रांस स्पेन को लड़ाई में हरा दिया, देन फ्रांस विल चूज माई राइवल टू रिप्लेस मी. दिस इज पॉलिटिकल entrepreneurship. You use your brains, you can be a politician, right? You can be successful in politics. So this was what all he understood from his empirical method. उससे पहले क्या था? In the medieval era, oh, the Bible is everything. Oh, Jesus is everything. Oh, the church is everything. The teachings of the church is everything. See what Machiavelli is doing. He's only talking about his own personal experience and what was happening around him in his present and in his past. History and empiricism. Right. The same way, when you observe things, when you observe issues, social issues, politics around you, institutions around you, you learn to grow into, you start appreciating the importance of certain institutions, right? Here we can clearly see that the church had kept Italy divided, that the church was in bed, was having an unholy alliance with foreign kingdoms of Spain and France and Germany, and divided its own land, Italy. So the church was an enemy for Machiavelli. But Machiavelli was an empiricist. He understood the value of religion in a man's life. He knew that the church was the enemy, but religion was not the enemy. Right? The church was enemy. Christianity was not the enemy. Because he knew human beings need religion to have faith, to have bhakti. Without religion, they'll be clueless, hopeless. So he appreciated the role, function, and utility of religion. He also believed that the king, he wanted a strong king, a strong prince who would unify Italy. अगर यूनिफिकेशन के लिए धर्म का नाम उपयोग करना पड़ता, इस्तेमाल करना है, where the king would use religion to unify the people, to command the obedience of the people, he should do so. So it could, for example, unify the people, make them obedient, and give them some moral hope. एक होप देता है रिलीजन, भक्ति है ना. That is functionalism. He may have been against the church, but he was not against religion itself. He knew the value of religion. And another example is Roman paganism. See, he's again looking back into history. And that is why he's not a modern thinker. Modernity is not just about history. For him, he felt हर सवाल का जवाब past में है. Is that modern for you? No, that is backward for you. That is why he's not a modern thinker. And this point we will write in the conclusion to balance the answer. अभी तक हम बोल रहे बढ़िया है Machiavelli. ठीक है. Let me talk about Roman paganism. During Machiavelli's times, what was the religion in Europe? Christianity. One God, one book, the Bible, one Messiah, messenger, Jesus Christ, and one institution, the church, and one head of the institution, the Pope. Right? This was Christianity. The dominant religion in Europe, the only religion in Europe. Now, before Christianity, Christianity was officially adopted as the religion of the Romans and the Roman state in the year 300, let's say. Andaj, 300 AD. Right? So that is 300 years after the birth of Christianity. So, but before Christianity, what was the religion in Rome? In Greece, it was paganism. Paganism means paganism is a descriptive word. It describes a religion which is polytheistic in Europe. है ना? Roman pagans मतलब सी एक रिलीजन होता है एब्राहमिक जुडेयो क्रिश्चियन रिलीजन, इस्लाम, जुडाइज्म एंड क्रिश्चियनिटी. वहां वन गॉड इन द नेम, फॉर इस्लाम वन गॉड कौन है? अल्लाह. वन मैसेंजर प्रॉफिट मोहम्मद. वन किताब द कुरान. ओके जी. वन रिलीजियस लीडर द कैलिफ, द खलीफा, sultan. Okay, Ottoman. Now, Christians, Jews, one God, Jehovah, right? And Jews were from before the Romans, right? They're one of the oldest religions in the Middle East, right? One of the oldest, not the oldest, right? Jews, what's their book? The Talmud or the Torah. What's their God? Jehovah. Who's their Messiah? Moses. Then comes Christianity with Jesus, Bible, and God. God is God for them. Capital G wala God. It's the Latin word, right? Now understand. You can also use the word Deus, D-E-U-S, Latin word Deus for God. Now, but Machiavelli liked another type of religion that was practiced in Rome throughout Roman history until the year 300 when Rome became Christian, right? For over 1,000 years, there was paganism in Rome. Paganism means, boys and girls, multiple gods. Jupiter, Juno, Apollo, Mars, Venus, right? Then Greek paganism, Zeus, Hades, Ares. Zeus kya hai? It's like Indra. His weapon was the thunderbolt. He was the god. He was the king of the gods. Indralok, right? Hades कौन है? उसका भाई, who was the god of the underworld, Naraka. Right? Ares कौन है? The son of Zeus. He was god of war. Athena कौन थी? Goddess of wisdom. So Machiavelli liked this kind of religion because these religions, the gods in these religions, they represented certain values such as courage and bravery and honor and sacrifice, dying for the motherland in battle. ये सब जरूरी है ना इटली को यूनिफाई करना है. तो इटली को यूनिफाई करने के लिए you'll have to defeat foreigners, foreign powers, Spain and France. You'll have to defeat your own enemies. That requires courage. But what was the teaching imparted by the church? ये church क्या सिखा रहा था? Life is all about going to heaven. हम पैदा होते पाप करके पैदा होते. So life भर सारा desires को मना करो. Oh, I don't want to have sex. Oh, I don't want to have money. I don't want to sleep. Oh, I don't want to eat. All I want to do is praise the Lord, भजन करते जाओ और जब मरोगे जन्नत चले जाओ. This was what was being taught by the church. So Machiavelli preferred Roman paganism, which taught glory and honor and sacrifice and bravery in fight and battlefield, which was needed to unify Italy. Right? So this was the religion Machiavelli liked, not Christianity. So he may have been against the church, but he was certainly not against religion because he understood the function of religion, the role and the utility it plays and it serves in man's life. Right. Now, these were from Renaissance. Because of Renaissance, he studied history of Rome. Because of studying history of Rome and Greece, he got to know Aristotle. Because of Aristotle, he got to know empiricism. Right? He went against the problems of his time, dark ages, andhavishwas, superstition. Right? And he captured the essence of what was happening, age of discovery, which led to economic entrepreneurship, the fragmented way of Italy, which led to political opportunities for aspiring rulers. He also learnt another approach of Aristotle, that is functionalism, whereby he appreciated the role of religion in a man's life. Example, he was mighty impressed by Roman paganism, which taught the correct values that were needed to unify Italy. Another approach that we have to cover is I told you earlier that the basic approaches, the basic methods that Machiavelli had was the empirical approach and the historical approach. Other approaches such as realism, functionalism, inductive reasoning were nothing but different sub-concepts or subsets or branches of the basic approach, that is especially empiricism. If you see, for example, empirical approach means learn from observation. Now, from the similarly, let's understand inductive approach. Right. What is inductive approach? You observe patterns by studying, let's say, behavior of people in politics. Okay, so what do you study? You understand that people in politics, they are competing. There's a lot of competition among the elite, and that everybody is either immoral or amoral, that they don't care about morality or they do immoral things. They do not uphold moral standards and ethics and norms and values and principles. Everybody is concerned about power, concerned about wealth. This is what you have observed from your own empirical observation and from your own personal first-hand experience, and what you have read also. Okay, based on your observation, you make principles, you make rules, you make kahavats. Okay, this is how politics operates, how it works. Let me make a statement regarding this that captures this scenario, this observation, this reality. Then you make a rule. Politics is nothing but struggle for power. Okay, so you made a conclusion, you made principles based on your observation. Okay, so you see observation, based on this you make generalized statements or principles. Remember, these are theories made out of observation, and they are generalized. It means Machiavelli viewed that politics is a place where power struggle happens, and this principle applies not only during the times of Machiavelli, but it should apply before Machiavelli, during Machiavelli, and after Machiavelli. So how to prove this? Politics is a ranabhumi, an arena for power struggle. Is this true today, boys and girls? Yes, it is. There is cutthroat competition in politics. Was this true during the times of Machiavelli? Yes, it was. And was this true before, 1000 years before Machiavelli, or 2000 years before Machiavelli? Yes, it was. Right. So this generalized statement he made after careful observation is not only applicable in his own time, but before him and after him, and even today and tomorrow. This is a theory. The laws of physics, the laws of gravity is applicable before the earth was born, it is applicable today, and it is applicable tomorrow, long after we are gone. Why? Because theories are meant to explain phenomena, explain concepts. The Big Bang Theory explains the birth of the universe, the expansion of the universe, and the future of the universe. Okay. The laws of thermodynamics, the laws of motion, the laws of gravity, E is equal to mc squared. They explain things, right? Einstein's theory, the theory of relativity, the general theory of relativity, the famous equation E is equal to mc squared, it explains the relationship between the speed of light, energy, and mass. So theories explain. So inductive reasoning, inductive theories mean you observe patterns, you observe what's happening around you, and you make generalized statements out of that, based on that observation, and those generalized statements or principles are applicable past mein, present mein, future mein. Theories, what a theory does? The theory helps us analyze or investigate the past, make sense of the present, and predict the future. Big Bang Theory helps us understand the past, helps us understand the past that happened 13.8 billion years ago. It helps us understand where we are now. It is also telling us where we are going 2 in the future, this rapid expansion of space, astrophysicists and cosmologists say there may be a great rip because the stars and galaxies are not moving away from each other. It is the space itself that is moving, that is expanding. It's not like star bhag raha hai. The space between two galaxies, that is expanding. So it will, if space and time, if they're together a fabric, will there be a great rip? Will this fabric completely tear apart? Right. So Big Bang theory can also tell us about the future. So the theory explains the past, the present, and the future. Again, I'm saying analyze and investigate the past, make sense of the present, and predict the future. So that for Machiavelli, it is through inductive reasoning. What is the opposite of inductive reasoning? Deductive reasoning. So here you deduce. How? You make certain assumptions. If x is equal to this, then you solve the problem. And when तुम बोलोगे LHS is equal to RHS, जो arithmetic algebra में करते हो ना, let's assume x is this value. Then you use formula that there's this essay. एक example in political philosophy, right? Thomas Hobbes, the next thinker after Machiavelli, he learned from Galileo Galilei that human beings are made up of matter. Matter means particles in motion. Okay, this is a fact. True back then, true now, true in the future. This is a fact. But Hobbes makes an assumption from this fact. Hobbes say, हाँ, वो जो particles in motions है ना, वो particles in motion क्या करता है? वो हमारा desire का cause है. It makes us desire things. Here is an observation. In reality, matter के अंदर जो electron atom के अंदर घूम रहा है, it's revolving around, right? Is that the reason for the desire? No, right? So Hobbes makes an assumption that human beings are made up of matter. Matter means particles in motion, and particle, इधर assumption आता है, particles in motion is causing the desires in man. Hobbes just made an assumption. Now आगे बढ़ते हैं. So हर इंसान, if all human beings are made up of matter, then all human beings have desire. If all human beings have desire, then they will fight against each other. Why? The resources in the society are scarce, finite, and limited. But our desires are unlimited. Right? Why? Because everybody is made up of matter. Matter means desire. Particles in motion means desire. Right? And we are born like that. So our desires are unlimited. We are naturally desirous people. But the resources in the society are scarce, finite, and limited. So to capture those resources, to gain control or possess and own those resources, we will compete with each other, fight with each other, be violent with each other. That is the next step. First step क्या है? एक fact. Galileo बताया था. Particles in motion, matter, human beings made up of that. Next comes the assumption of Hobbes. This caused the desires. Okay, and everybody is desirous, everybody is fighting because of scarce resources. आगे जा रहे. अगर everybody is fighting so much, उनको control करने क्या चाहिए? State चाहिए. If everybody has unlimited desires, 100 people with unlimited desires fighting each other to the death, to control that, do you need a strong state or a weak state? A strong state, a strong king you need. Because human beings are rabid animals and are fighting against each other. इतना सारा desirous individuals को control करने के लिए you need a strong state, an absolute monarch, an absolute king. Only then there can be order. So this is deductive reasoning. कि तुम पहला एक principle को assume करते हो. What did Hobbes assume? Matter, particles in motion is causing the passions and the desires. He made one assumption, then he made derivations, he deduced the next steps. जैसे मैथ्स में स्टेप बाय स्टेप प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करते हैं ना, वैसे. दैट इज डिडक्टिव रीजनिंग. हियर माकियावेली कोई अज्यूम नहीं करता शुरुआत में. ही जस्ट सीज द रियलिटी अराउंड हिम. Based on the reality, he will generate patterns. And based on those patterns, he will make statements and conclusions and principles. And these principles are applicable everywhere, anytime, anywhere. Okay, this is inductive method and deductive method. Machiavelli is using inductive method, which he has learned from this empirical observation. Okay, ji. Next is realism. What is realism? Understanding reality, not imagining, काश वो स्टेट होता जहां रूलर फिलोसोफर है. Soldiers and rulers don't have wives, don't have wealth or property. All they do is be concerned about the state. Every minute of their lives they're contributing to the state. ये सब idealistic है. It will never happen in real life. Right? Don't imagine a state. You can't have state based on imagination. State should be based on practicality, practicability, right? On the ground, how it is. Is it implementable? That is what Machiavelli is concerned about. He's focused on what? Practical politics. Practical politics. He doesn't care about not concerned about ideals. He sees politics not in a moral way, but an amoral way, जहां morality का कोई लेना देना नहीं है. This politics as struggle for power, which is true in real life, right? अभी इलेक्शन है ना, जनरल इलेक्शंस 2024. यू मे से ओ मोदी गोदी मीडिया. अगर मोदी जी मीडिया को कैप्चर नहीं करता, इज इफ आई वाज इन हिज प्लेस आई वुड डू द सेम थिंग. If I have the opportunity to completely control the media, I would. If you're the opposition, you control your own media. You come up with your own media. Use your money to have your own media. I'm not saying this as a teacher of political science. I'm saying this if I were a politician. Because I know. वो खुद बोला था गोधरा राइट्स का जो भी हुआ 2002 में, उसके बाद क्या सीख सकता है. In an interview, he said, if I could change one thing, I would learn how to handle the media. Now he's the master of media. He's the puppet master of the media. Because he knows media controls the imagination of the people. It controls the public discourse. It controls the public narrative. It controls what people talk about. And if you want to win elections, you have to do everything in your disposal, in your power. Because ultimately, politics is about what? Winning elections. That's how he sees it. He fights in the elections, he campaigns in the election as though his life is dependent on it, as though he would die if he didn't campaign. इतना hardworking है. What is realism? According to this, if your ends justify the means. If your end is political power of the state, you can take any means possible. If you have to go to war, you should go to war. If you have to kill someone, you should kill someone. If it is going to help you reach your goal. Goal means ends justify the means. अगर तुम्हारा end है, goal है unification of Italy under a strong monarch or a strong king, the king should be willing to take any means necessary. He should not at all be hesitant to kill, to use cruelty and force and torture. If he, let's say, conquers a particular territory and the king you have removed from that territory, you should kill him and his family so that he doesn't pose any threat in the future. Because you have to safeguard your position first. Right? क्या बोलते हैं इसको? Raison d'etat. It is reason of the state. It is reason of the state. In Italian, it is ragion di stato. Ragion di stato. Raison d'etat matlab reason of the state. If, let's say, if for the sake of India's, if you want to trouble your enemy, if you have to use Afghani terrorists to trouble Pakistan, if that's going to help India, do that. Right? And he popularized the word state. stato bolta tha. Because today for us the word state is a very common word. But for Machiavelli, it was not common. Because before Machiavelli, how people called or referred to the political systems of their times. The British called kingdoms or commonwealth or realm. The Romans called empire, imperium. The Greeks called polis, Polis, which means a city state. It was Machiavelli who started using the word state, and today we owe him that. Later, Hobbes and all carried forward that legacy. ठीक है जी. So पहले क्या होता था? Commonwealth, realm, kingdom, principality, polis, dukedom, empire, imperium. Machiavelli made it the state. Right. Next. His realism made a great impact to political studies as a discipline, as a separate academic subject. Like I said before, for a long time, politics was just a branch of philosophy. Plato was a political philosopher. And to an extent, Aristotle introduced scientific methods and made it a different subject. He revolutionized the way subject was approached. But it was Machiavelli who completely separated not just political studies, but politics as a completely different area, zone, domain, sphere, realm, where rules are different. Let me explain with some examples. Lawyers have their own rules. For example, principles of natural justice. For example, jurisprudential law, jurisprudential principle, you are innocent until proven guilty. That even if you are, let's say, a murderer, and you go to a lawyer, you confess to your crime, कि मैंने किसी को मार दिया. But I want you to represent me and prove me innocent. The lawyer mostly will take up the case. Because for the lawyer, it's about winning or losing the case. And the lawyer believes that you're not just guilty because you say you've committed the crime, that you have confessed. No. Your crime has to be proven and you must be convicted in a court of law with evidence and facts. Right. So these are the rules for lawyers. The medical profession has its own rules. Economics and economists have their own rules. For them, utility is the rule. That their policies, the policies that they recommend, must benefit the maximum number of people. It may not benefit each and every person in a country, but it must benefit as many people as possible. Sarvodaya may not be possible for them. Antyodaya may not be possible. That is, Sarvodaya means development of all, each and everyone. Antyodaya means development of the poorest of the poor person, the last person. That may not be possible for the economists. But they will focus on the greatest benefit for the greatest number of people. For the majority, basically. Okay? The same way, if economists have their own rules, lawyers have their own rules, ordinary human beings have their own rules. The era of politics, the realm of politics, the zone, sphere, domain of politics has its own rules. So politics has own rules. It has own standards and benchmarks for success. In politics, what is success? Success is how much you have strengthened the state, how you're able to hold on to your political office, how you avoid being kicked out by your rivals, how you consolidate your own power. For example, in politics, according to Machiavelli, success of a ruler is consolidation. Number one, first step, consolidation. In fact, the first step is coming to power. Let's see. Coming to power. Okay? You may come to power with force, with your military success. Then you consolidate your power. That is, you maintain your political power. You may do it through fraud. by manipulating people, by confusing them, by cleverly fooling them, brainwashing them. You maintain through fraud. Then you strengthen the state. Strengthen the state. If that requires, you can even expand it. You can use violence and cunning if it is needed for success. So politics has its own rules. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of dual morality? That is also an approach of Machiavelli. He says, ordinary citizen, for him, traditional morality is there. Traditional morality, moral rules. For example, honesty, kindness, etc. But for the prince or the ruler or the politician, what is most important? National interest, interest of the state. Then securing own office, securing own position. That is more important. Reason of the state, national interest, expanding the state. If that requires you to break certain rules, break promises, jhoot bolo. If you have to brainwash people, use propaganda. Right. Use religion to manipulate people. Use patriotism to manipulate people. You can write these examples. Use patriotism. Again, to manipulate people. That is dual morality. Morality of the ordinary Aam Aadmi is different from morality of the ruler. For the ruler, these things matter. For the ordinary man, these things matter. That is the approach of dual morality. Then, what else was his approach? Secularism. He was against the Roman Catholic Church, the Pope, which had kept Italy divided, and the Pope and the Church, they were interfering in the political affairs of different kings of Europe, especially Italian rulers, for the benefit of the Church, and the Church had become a very corrupt institution. So Machiavelli, he wanted to separate the Church from the state. Then he wanted to subordinate Church, that is state की state ऊपर, Church नीचे. State ऊपर, Church नीचे. The state is the real sovereign. Church listens to the commands and the dictates of the state, which means the king. And religion can be used by the king to unify the people, to command obedience from the people, to enforce the will of the state on the people using religion. And another important thing he said, there are different ways to God. Very important, that people often overlook or ignore. Because of the age of discovery during Machiavelli's times, Europeans discovered faraway lands. And these faraway lands, they had their own religions, their own truths. The Hindus had their own, the Jains had their own, the Buddhists had their own, the Muslims had their own, the Native Americans had their own. He realized कि हम Christian लोग हैं, for us, okay, this is the way to God, what the church says. But the world has crores of people outside, millions of people outside Europe. They have their own truths, they have their own ways to God. Take our own past example. Before the coming of Christianity, before the advent of Christianity, we had what? Roman paganism. Again, there were different ways to God, different types of God, which these gods represented different values, different qualities, different virtues. The Greeks had their own religion. So, by studying history and his own times, the religion of faraway lands, he realized, yeah, there is no one way to God or one essential truth. There were different ways to God. And this is one of the founding principle of modern day secularism. Indian version of secularism treats all religions equally, respects and supports all religions equally. Why? The Indian state believes that there may not be just one, there isn't essentially just one way to God. That is why we do not have an established state religion like Hindu Rashtra or a Muslim Rashtra. No. We are a secular institution. We are not anti-religious, we just support all religions. Why? Essentially, we believe that there are multiple ways to God. It's up to you to decide which path you wish to take. This was Machiavelli's contribution to secularism. Another thing is, another statement. His era, like I said, had a lot of entrepreneurship. Age of discovery, trading with East, Europe and India, trading, making a lot of money. People spent all of this money on luxury, on gold, on art and culture, on wine and champagne, enjoying life. And you know, ऐसे मतलब जो खर्चा करते हैं उसको और पैसा चाहिए, पैसे के लिए आप रिश्वत करोगे, मतलब a lot of corruption was there. So he said, wealth without worth is corruption. If you focus only on luxury, make money to enjoy money, that is corruption. बिना औकात की पैसा होना चाहिए नहीं. You should not have. So he was very skeptical, not happy, matlab. He was not excited basically, he was not unhappy. At the same time, he was not willing to be completely positive. His attitude was skeptical or pessimistic or cynical. He was concerned, बड़ा परेशान था regarding civilizational progress. Regarding civilizational progress. And this later influenced Rousseau, another thinker, not in the syllabus but important nevertheless. Rousseau was influenced by this. Rousseau came, I think, around 250 years after Machiavelli, right? He was a Swiss and French thinker. He was from Switzerland and France. And he said, यार क्या है urbanization, industrialization, city life. इंडिया में कई लोग बोलते हैं ना, पिंड में लाइफ है, गांव में लाइफ है, ग्राम में लाइफ है, ओ गन्ने की जूस पियो, देसी घी खाओ, लस्सी पियो, गायों के बीच में रहो, वो है भाई लाइफ, गांव में लाइफ है. Sensation, romanticizing the village life. Rousseau also was like that. ये क्या civilization? What civilization means? What? Living in urban areas, in apartments, going to work every day, making money, going to a cinema theater, right? Feeding all the time, eating McDonald's burger, Starbucks coffee. Is that civilizational progress? Right. So luxury was associated with corruption. Civilizational progress नहीं, civilizational degeneration लगा इन लोगों को थोड़ा बहुत. But they were not truly negative. They like a true Renaissance thinker, he believed in the human potential. He knew that in ancient Rome, Human beings built large, magnificent monuments, structures, the Colosseum, and how, if given an opportunity, how human beings can advance, make a lot of money, improve culture. So he believed in human potential. He was very impressed by reason and wisdom of the ancient world. Human beings can achieve a lot, right? And can lead to civilizational progress in the right way. Not only wealth is not the answer. Human reason and wisdom is the answer for civilizational progress, just like how Aristotle, Plato talked about. Just see the variety in his approach. Right. You've said that he is the first modern thinker as described by many scholars because he chose to reject the medieval Christian way of thinking or the ancient idealistic way of thinking, but he from the ancient world certain points he picked up, like empiricism from Aristotle in Greece and historical approach from Rome, from Livius, and he left a legacy behind. He made politics and political science a completely different subject where it has its own rules, focused on practical politics. He viewed the state differently from the Greeks and from the medieval Christians. Right? He viewed the state purely in a secular manner. He saw it, for him, power was the currency in the state, not morality or God. Morality was for Greeks, God was for the medieval Christians. The Renaissance made him understand the importance of history, learn from historical leaders. Renaissance introduced him to ancient works of Greece, especially Aristotle, from whom he learned the empirical approach. He studied his world through observation without blindly following the dictates of the church or the teachings of the church or the brainwashings of the church. He used reason, logic, understood the world around him, and understood the value of certain institutions, the utility of certain institutions like religion. Right? He used inductive reasoning, that is, observe everything around you, then find patterns, then build theories on it that explain the past, present, and future. Inductive reasoning. And because he was empirical, he observed things around him as they are rather than imagining the best possible world. Jaisa hai waisa. So that realism came to be, where he said ends justify the means. If you want to unify Italy, if it takes violence to do that, go ahead and do that. Later Gandhi will write against this. For him, गोल अगर आजादी है उसका मतलब ये नहीं कि हिंसा से करोगे, अहिंसा. गोल भी अच्छा, तरीका भी अच्छा होना चाहिए. Realism, right? He made politics a subject of its own, a different, autonomous, free subject. That politics has its own rules, just like other domains like the legal domain or economics. He talked about dual morality. बिकॉज उसकी जमाने में चर्च क्या बोलता था, ओह ये गलत है, ये पाप है, ये करना पाप है, वो करना पाप है. वो बोला भाई ये ऑर्डिनरी जनता में चलेगा, पॉलिटिक्स में कुछ भी पाप नहीं है. सक्सेस इज कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट. व्हाट सक्सेस इन पॉलिटिक्स? कम टू पावर विथ फोर्स, कंसोलिडेट पावर विथ fraud by being cunning, khatarnak, then expand your state. If that requires going to war, go to war. Use violence. Be clever like a fox and forceful and ruthless like a lion. A dual morality. Then his secularism, how he not only separated the influence of the church on the state, he separated that influence. He in fact placed the church under the state. And he said there are different ways to God. Then even though during his time Italy was seeing a lot of wealth and prosperity in culture, language, literature, art, architecture, he said ये सब यार ऐश कर रहे लोग. This is wealth, luxury, and this is not good. This is corruption. This is not progress. This is corruption. We are going backwards. बाद में क्या है, एथेंस में क्या हुआ था, ये वेल्थ के पीछे सब भाग रहे थे, एंड में क्या हुआ, इनइक्वालिटी, डिविजन. फोकस शुड बी ऑन व्हाट? Human reason, human potential. That is humanism. Right. So now you can clearly see how Machiavelli made a huge difference to the way politics was understood, society was understood. Before him was the medieval dark ages, and before that was the idealist era of ancient Greeks. But he preferred the Romans, who had balance. He preferred Aristotle, who also had balance. Now we conclude. So what do you write in the conclusion? Machiavelli, yes, of course, he departed, or he broke free from medieval way of thinking, which was influenced by Christianity. Okay, this was said by Professor Alan Ryan, modern day scholar. Okay, but the problem was what Professor Sabine says. Professor Sabine says he is a Renaissance thinker, not really a modern thinker. Why? He seeks wisdom from the past. Whose past? Roman past. Hobbes जो अगला thinker है, he says political science, without me and before me there was no political science. Political science शुरू होता है मेरे किताब से, and I want to bring science to politics in the purest way possible, because he was friends with Galileo. He wanted to make science a theoretical subject like physics. Principle से शुरू करो, end में LHS is equal to RHS, equation solved, ऐसे theoretical physics like Einstein. And he wanted to make politics, political science for the future. And he did not want to learn anything from the past. But Machiavelli thought, हमारा हर सवाल के लिए जवाब है हमारा इतिहास में. Itihasa of Rome gives answers to us. Right? He seeks wisdom and answers for the pressing needs and questions of his time from the past, which was 1500 years before. So seeking wisdom from the past is what? It is Renaissance. Renaissance मतलब क्या? Revival, rebirth of ancient wisdom, ancient past, ancient politics, ancient philosophy, ancient art, ancient culture. Therefore, he is a Renaissance thinker. But let us be neutral and say that he did influence Hobbes. Later he influenced Gramsci. ये सब syllabus में mentioned thinkers है. He also influenced realism in international relations theory. So clearly, agar if he was not modern completely, he was completely medieval. Alan Rand saying, हाँ भाई, he did break from the medieval era. Sabine says, no. Medieval से बाहर है, but Renaissance है. But we are saying no. Many of his ideas influenced the future. For example, he even influenced the modern concept of secularism, like I discussed earlier. Right? And he wanted the king to have complete power. He did not want the church or the feudal lords, zamindars, to control the king. He wanted the king to be the supreme boss. What is that? Modern theory of sovereignty. These are modern ideas, right, boys and girls? Therefore, in some ways, he was very modern. So there is indeed a case to call him one of the first modern thinkers, if not the first completely. So he, Bodin and Hobbes, they are the Trimurti of modern thinking. Two of them are in the syllabus. Third thinker Machiavelli, fourth thinker Hobbes. Is this clear, boys and girls? Hope you understood this discussion. Clear? Right.